Time for part two with the State Member for Ferntree Gully. Nick Wakeling's in the studio with us, and we're going to talk about the challenges that are facing that sector of the community that's been very much in the news and under fire because there's been so much disruption, and I'm talking about emergency services. We've got a fire season coming upon us yet again. There are so many things that need to be addressed. And you, of course, as Shadow Minister for Emergency Services, have a tremendous job to do. Give us a sense of what the state opposition would like to see done, because the CFA has gone through so many different incarnations and changes that people are struggling to understand how this system that we currently have is going to work with a new emergency season coming up.
Yeah, look, our CFA has been such a stalwart in protecting
for years.
Victorian for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back to January, only January. I mean, we had the Premier who was out taking selfies, with our volunteers to thank them for the work they were doing in Mallacoota. And let's not forget, they were in New South Wales as well. But now we're seeing our CFA under attack. The government's implemented these new fire reforms with the establishment of Fire Rescue Victoria.
But are they reforms? Are they genuine reforms or actions that will put the force and its ability to fight fires in an even more uncomfortable place?
Well, this is meant to, the government says it's going to improve the service. We know it's anything but. We've seen the chiefs resigned, the chair, the head of the boards resigned. Volunteers feel as though that they're no longer valued by this government.
Or heard of, or being listened to.
Well, and this is exactly right. And we're talking about volunteers. These are mums and dads in local communities all across the state who give up their time just to help.
Put their lives at risk.
Absolutely. And so what they're doing is they're just saying, if I'm going to get treated like this, I'll leave. And this is exactly what we don't want in the lead up to this fire season. I mean, here we are, lead up to a fire season. We've got the CFA's put bans on CFA members participating in burn-offs because of COVID. We've got CFA putting bans in terms of training of our volunteers. It's just crazy. We want to see a return to a true volunteer organisation, one that's respected by the government. The community love the CFA. They're just bewildered by the fact that the government attacks them. So we want to ensure that in the future, in a future government, our goal is going to be rebuilding the CFA, one that empowers the chief to employ his own staff. I mean, it's crazy. The chief of the CFA is the only employer in Victoria that's not allowed to employ any staff.
Wow.
The staff are handed to him from another organisation. It's crazy.
How's that meant to work?
Well, it's exactly right, and that's this is exactly why we've seen the former chief leave, and why people have got such lack of respect for the new structure. We want to see the chief given the power to employ his own staff, to set his own direction. We want to ensure that the board is there supporting volunteers, not making decisions which are actually attacking volunteers. And we also want to see a system where volunteers have a commissioner to make complaints to. At the moment, volunteers are actually, there's evidence in my own community across the state where they're under attack from permanent staff, but they've got no one to turn to, no one to complain to.
Well, confidence, you can see it undermined entirely. Nothing's going to work in a reasonable manner if there's no continuity and no thinking, or in fact, no protocols to follow. That's remarkable. Do you think it's possible that you will be able to come up with a plan that will restore it to the force and the service that it once was?
Well,
because it managed to do it pretty well for an awful long time.
The only way this will work is you need it driven from the bottom up.
Okay.
The government sought a top-down approach and thrust a new system on volunteers. Didn't consult, just told them this is the new structure. What we are going to do over the next 2 years in the lead up to the next state election is consult with brigades, consult with their representative body, but more importantly, consult with the 50-odd thousand volunteers across this state to give them the say as to what they want their future CFA to look like. One that they respect, one that they feel valued, one that they can trust. Because let me tell you, these volunteers, if they're not valued, if they're not respected, they'll simply walk away and find something else.
We can't afford that. And go on, you were saying?
I was just going to say, let's also remember that those thousands of volunteers on the outskirts of metropolitan Melbourne, they're the people that get in the trucks and will drive to Mallacoota,
Yeah,
that will drive to other parts of the state to deal with those fires. If they walk away, when we have another major bushfire, there won't be that surge capacity of volunteers to protect our
So we
state.
left off to the ADF. Just before I let you go, industrial manslaughter, there's been a big change there. You as the Shadow Minister for Workplace Safety, what have you made of them?
Well, the government introduced new reforms this year, which effectively mean that an employer, if they are deemed to be negligent in their actions, which causes the death of a worker or a client or a customer, they could face jail for up to 25 years. Now,
Pretty onerous.
well, it's very onerous, but let's take COVID. We know that those proprietors of aged care facilities which have seen deaths are currently under investigation for potential OH&S breaches. So we know that these powers could potentially see employers who have seen COVID deaths potentially face jail. But let's remember, how did all this start? How did the second wave start? It was the fiasco that was hotel quarantine. Who managed that? It was the government.
That's right.
And that's led to deaths across the state, led to deaths which has impacted directly on Victoria. I have called upon the government to be investigated, and we know that Department of Human Services and the Department of Jobs and Precincts are currently under investigation for potential OH&S breaches. Victorians are angry, Victorians are upset. They want those responsible for hotel quarantine and the damage that has caused to be held accountable and for action to be taken against those that are responsible for this fiasco.
They are fighting words. It's an extraordinary situation, and how did we ever get it to arrive where we are today? It's remarkable. Nick Wakeling, thank you for joining us in the Informer studio. The member for Ferntree Gully, talking about not only industrial manslaughter, but also the changes to the CFA that are affecting so many people, and especially the confidence of the community that fights a tremendous battle each and every fire season.